From Roman temple to mosque, from pirate raids to powerful earthquakes, this quiet cathedral in Faro should not still be standing. Yet here it is, watching over the old town with a golden altar, a red Baroque organ, a peaceful cloister, and even a tiny chapel of bones tucked away beside its walls. If you think the Algarve is only beaches and nightlife, stay with me for the next few minutes. In this video, we're stepping into Faro Cathedral, also known as the Sé de Faro, to uncover the layers of history, art, and living faith hidden behind this fortress-like facade. I'll show you how to visit, what not to miss inside, and where to find the best rooftop views over the Ria Formosa at the very top of the bell tower. Let's start right here on the square. We're standing in the heart of Faro's old town, in a walled area locals call Villa Adentro. For almost 2,000 years, this hill has been a sacred place. Tradition tells us that in Roman times there may have been a temple here. Later, as Christianity spread, a Paleo-Christian church likely stood on this site. Centuries of Arab rule followed, and the building was transformed into a mosque as Faro, then known as Santa Maria de Asanoba, became an important Muslim city. All that changed in 1249 when King Afonso III of Portugal reconquered the city. The mosque was consecrated as a Christian church, and by the mid-13th century a new cathedral began to rise under the authority of the Archbishop of Braga. That's the medieval core of what you're about to visit. Over the years, Faro Cathedral saw royal visits and big upgrades, especially when it became the seat of the Diocese of Faro in the 16th century. But it also survived some serious damage, an English attack in 1596 when troops under the Earl of Essex sacked the city, and the Great Earthquake of 1755, which shook much of southern Portugal. What you see today is a patchwork of all those eras: medieval walls and tower, Renaissance and Baroque chapels, and later repairs. As we walk around, you'll literally see history written into the stone. As you step through the Gothic doorway, the inside feels surprisingly bright and open compared to the heavy stone outside. The cathedral is laid out in 3 naves, 3 long parallel spaces, divided by sturdy columns with rounded arches. These are Tuscan-style columns, simple and strong, part of a plain style that became popular in Portugal after earlier earthquakes and damage. The idea was, build solid, practical, and resistant. Look straight down the central axis. Your eye is drawn along the stone floor, past the rows of wooden pews, all the way to the glowing main altar at the far end. The ceiling above you is relatively simple, no dizzying frescoes here because the focus is on structure and stability. But as we start to look left and right, you'll see another side of the story: side chapels lined with blue and white azulejo tiles, gilded wood carving, and small altars filled with statues and reliquaries. The plain stone structure becomes a frame for bursts of color and gold. Take a moment here to just listen. You might hear creaking wood, quiet footsteps, and sometimes the sounds of the city muffled through thick walls. It's a space that has held baptisms, weddings, funerals, and daily mass for centuries, and that sense of lived faith is part of what makes this cathedral special. Let's move closer to the main chancel. The high altar area is where the cathedral reveals its Baroque heart. The wooden altarpiece in front of you is richly carved and covered in gold leaf, creating a glowing backdrop around the tabernacle. Columns twist upward, curls and foliage fill the spaces, and niches hold statues of saints. This style was popular in Portugal in the 17th and 18th centuries, and it was often funded by wealth coming in from overseas trade. Above and around the altar, look for painted panels and carved angels. Everything here is designed to pull your gaze toward the sanctuary, emphasizing the importance of the Eucharist and the presence of Christ in the sacrament. Now, as you explore the side chapels along the nave, each one tells a different story. One of the most interesting is the chapel often associated with relics of the Holy Wood of the Cross, where reliquaries and devotional objects are displayed. These small pieces were venerated as physical connections to the Passion of Christ and to the wider church. You'll also see chapels dedicated to the Virgin Mary, to the Rosary, and to various saints important to the local community. Look closely at the tiles on the walls. Many are 17th or 18th century azulejos, showing scenes from the lives of Mary, Jesus, or the saints, framed by decorative borders. They act like a storybook in ceramic, teaching the faith visually in a time when many people could not read. Now let's talk about one of the most striking features of Faro Cathedral, its Baroque organ. High above the nave, set in a dramatic red and gold case, is an 18th century pipe organ with decorative details that might surprise you. If you look closely at the carving, you can find small figures and motifs inspired by Asian art, what people call chinoiserie. This reflects the global connections of Portugal at the time when trade routes reached across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. The organ itself has a rich, full sound that can fill this stone space with music. Imagine this cathedral on a feast day, candles lit, incense drifting upward, and the organ's pipes thundering out hymns while the choir sings from the loft. Even when it's silent, the organ case is like a piece of sculpture suspended above the congregation. If you're visiting, check if there are any concerts or special services. Hearing this instrument in action is one of the most powerful ways to experience the building because it brings together architecture, art, and sound in a single moment. From the bustle of the nave, we step into one of my favorite parts of the cathedral complex, the cloister. This enclosed courtyard, surrounded by arcades, was designed as a quiet space for prayer and walking meditation. Look at the simple arches, the rhythm of the columns, and the play of light and shadow on the stone. Even on a hot day, the cloister usually feels cooler and calmer than the streets outside. Off to one side, there is a tiny bone shrine, a small chapel built using human bones and skulls from the old cemetery. It's much smaller and more discreet than the famous bone chapel at Igreja do Carmo elsewhere in Faro, but the message is similar, a reminder of mortality and the hope of resurrection. Before you leave, don't skip the climb up the bell tower. The stairs are narrow and a bit uneven, so take your time and watch your step. As you climb, you pass the bells themselves, huge, weathered bronze giants that have called people to prayer and marked the hours for generations of fishermen, sailors, and families in Faro. At the top, you step out to one of the best viewpoints in the city. From here, you can see the tiled roofs of the old town, the white walls of nearby churches, and beyond them, the blue and green of the Ria Formosa lagoon spreading out toward the barrier islands. On a clear day, it's easy to understand why this was both a spiritual high point and a strategic lookout. So that's Faro Cathedral, a place where Roman, Islamic, and Christian histories overlap, where plain stone structure meets Baroque gold, where a peaceful cloister and a tiny bone shrine quietly remind us how many lives have passed through these doors. If you're visiting the Algarve, I highly recommend taking an hour or two to step inside, climb the tower, and see this side of Faro beyond the beaches and bars. If you enjoyed this tour, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more church and cathedral visits around Portugal, and tell me in the comments which part of Faro Cathedral surprised you the most, the organ, the cloister, or the view from the top? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next church.